Hello and welcome to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. My name is Natalie Himmelrich. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is completely self-funded, produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. Consider making a small donation to support the podcast. Go to bit.ly/support, capital G, capital T, and podcast. I repeat, bit.ly/supportgt podcast. Thank you so much. And for more information, please visit Natalie's website, join the podcast Instagram page, and subscribe to the newsletter to receive updates on future episodes. So welcome to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. I'm your host, Natalie Himmelrich, and today we'll continue our Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month mini-series. In this series, you'll hear a blend of solo reflections and replays of some of the most listened to conversations from the last 3 years, all centered around pregnancy and infant loss. The grief, the healing, and the ways we can support one another through it. So if you haven't yet, I invite you to listen to the first episode of the mini-series, which is episode 142, called Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness. It sort of paints the scene about how pregnancy and infant loss awareness came into awareness and into life. And then episode 144, where we start with the first replay, which is actually the first episode ever released on the podcast and still today one of the most favorite, most listened to. Then followed by episode 145 called Your Grief is Real and Valid and How to Show Up Without Fixing. So today is episode 2 of the solo reflections, and we're moving into a topic that many parents have described as one of the hardest parts of loss, the loneliness. And what we as supporters and communities can do and say to ease that isolation rather than deepen it. Because loneliness after pregnancy and or infant loss has a particular texture. It's the quiet that fills the house when you expected newborn sounds. It's walking past prams and baby sections in stores, feeling like you're the only one carrying this invisible grief. It's also the challenge that you will or might have when people around you are having their baby showers or invite you to their baby's first birthday when your baby should be 1 year old. It's the ache of realizing that the world keeps moving on while yours has stopped. As I've been working with many bereaved parents over the years, one of the things they tell me very often is that people disappeared. So in the beginning, at first messages pours in like condolence cards, flowers, offers to help. But after a few weeks, there's silence. And in that silence, the loneliness grows louder and louder. And there's also another layer of isolation, which is the invisible nature of the loss itself. When a baby dies in pregnancy or shortly after birth, others may not have met them, held them, or even known their name. When you think about pregnancy loss, often, just like before week 12, we are told, or many are being told, don't say it to people because the likelihood for you to have a miscarriage is 1 in 4. And so many people don't even share that they're pregnant. But the loss is still real. Parents may feel like their grief is somehow less real to others because people haven't met the baby, and that hurts deeply. So if this is you, please hear me. You are not imagining the loneliness. It's a normal part of grieving. And it's something so profoundly intimate and often misunderstood. And you are not doing grief wrong. Sometimes the loneliness is even compounded by the discomfort from others, like a friend who changes the subject, or the family member who avoids eye contact, or the colleague who doesn't mention the loss at all. Their silence is not necessarily because they don't care. More often it's because they don't know what to say or fear saying the wrong thing. Still, the result is the same. You feel unseen and left alone with your pain. So what helps? Finding at least one safe person, someone who can listen without judging or trying to fix. This can be through connecting with a grief group online or in person, where you can say your baby's name freely, where other people listen to you who understand where you've been and maybe have been in the exact same place. Also writing or creating art, walking, breathing, anything that brings you back to yourself when isolation closes in. One of the books that I've created with the community of bereaved parents is called May We All Heal, and it can be used as a way to use a prompt daily for a certain amount of time to really focus on your grief and express what's going on. Loneliness often whispers no one understands, but there are others who do. Maybe not in your immediate circle, but somewhere out there are other parents who know this ache, who feel as lonely as you are, and you belong among them. On my website you'll find a page called Grievers Resources, and on there I list a group that I've created more than 10 years ago called Grieving Parents on Facebook, but there's also a page on there, so go and follow this group. There's also a May We All Heal group on Facebook, which you can join and continue there if Facebook is your thing. Another way is to search for other people on Instagram. The May We All Heal community actually started on Instagram when Instagram wasn't as it is today, but 10 years ago it was about communities. So go and look up on those links. I also share them in the show notes, and you will find your community. Now let's talk about words and why they matter so much. So for supporters listening, this part is for you. Because most people want to be kind, they just feel unsure and helpless. So maybe what you've said, or you've said something that you realized later, oh, this hurt. Please know you can learn new ways. And your willingness to do so is by listening to this podcast. And it already makes a difference. So let's start by what helps. Sentences such as, I'm so sorry your baby died. Or, I wish I could take away your pain. Or like, tell me about your baby if you'd like. I'm here even if you don't want to talk. Or a simple message of, I'm thinking of you today. Simple, honest and human. Because what makes these phrases different is that by saying them, you do acknowledge the loss instead of avoiding it. You validate that the baby existed and still exists in those people's hearts, and that the grief is real, and that the parent, the mother and the father, they are not alone. Now let's look at some of the phrases that can unintentionally wound. And it's important to know that because you might just want to be helpful, but these are not helpful. One of the sentences that I hear often from the people I've worked with is, at least it happened early. Or you might have heard that as well in your circle when people say to them, you can try again. Everything happens for a reason. Or that is God needed another angel. Or be grateful for the children you have. I shared this previously. In my case, they said, because I have given birth to twin and the younger one died, they said, at least you've got one and she's healthy. The reason these phrases hurt to some degree is some of them, not all of them, are cognitively true. Like, at least it happened early, is maybe true cognitively, but this is dismissing the emotional emptiness of that sentence. So these statements might come from your love or faith or optimism, but to a grieving parent, they can sound like minimization. They jump too quickly to comfort. They skip over the pain that needs to be acknowledged first. So, it's different if they say it. If a parent says, we can try again, that's a different thing than if you as a supporter say it. So if you're unsure what to say, honesty works best. For example, I don't know what to say, but I care. Or, I'm scared of saying the wrong thing, but I won't disappear on you. That honesty builds trust. It tells the griever, you see me, even in my sorrow. And that's the thing that is so hard for people, to be in presence of sorrow, of grief. We want to fix it. But sorrow, if it is witnessed, that's the way to go. So for those of you who are grieving, you might gently guide your friends or family by saying, I appreciate you checking in. I just need you to listen today. Or, hearing my baby's name means a lot. Or, I'm not ready to talk about it yet, but please keep reaching out. That gives permission to the supporters to try again and not to wonder whether it's the right time. You don't owe anyone a polished version of your grief. Language is powerful because it creates connection or distance. So when we speak with tenderness, curiosity, and presence, we bridge the loneliness gap, even just a little. My latest book is called Bridging the Grief Gap, and it exactly started from that place where I was supporting a grieving mother and her sister, who were very close, but they had this gap between them where one couldn't understand the other. And so the book Bridging the Grief Gap started from that misconnection. And in a book, I describe many of those misunderstandings that can happen between the grievers and the supporters just because they're in different places. One is non-bereaved, one is bereaved. And the non-bereaved might not even have supporting qualities or is not a trained supporter. So if you're unsure about that, and if you want to be supportive, go and check out that book. It's also linked in the show notes. So to close for today, loneliness after pregnancy and infant loss can feel endless. But connection, even in small, imperfect doses, helps light the way forward. So whether you are one that is grieving or one trying to support, remember, it's not about having perfect words. It's about having a kind heart. So every time we acknowledge a baby who died, every time we hold space for a parent's tears, every time we dare to stay present instead of looking away, we reduce the loneliness of loss. Thank you for joining me today for the second episode of Solo Reflections of the Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Mini Series. The next episode will be a replay in 2 days, and on October 14, I'll be releasing another one called Navigating the Waves of Grief and Practical Support Matters. In that, I'll explore the changing rhythms of grief and how to offer meaningful, practical help. So if today's episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need it, a friend, a partner, a support person who's learning how to show up. You can find the resources like my book Grieving Parents or Bridging the Grief Gap and my audio course Healing Steps at nataliehimmerich.com. And remember, your words, your presence and your compassion, they truly matter. So take gentle care, and I'll meet you again soon. Thanks for listening to How to Deal with Grief and Trauma. If you'd like to be updated on future episodes, please subscribe to my newsletter on nataliehimmerich.com. If you need grief support, please contact me for a 30 minutes free discovery session. How to Deal with Grief and Trauma is produced and edited by me, Natalie Himmelrich. To support this podcast, please rate, review and subscribe to or follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. And remember to keep breathing. I promise it will get easier.